What if I told you the wealthiest 1% don't fall asleep the same way as everyone else while the world drifts off in worry? They use the final minutes of the night as a weapon because the last thought before sleep isn't harmless. It's a command, and that command decides how you rise tomorrow, how you act, and how fast you move ahead of the crowd. You are not just going to sleep, you are programming your subconscious mind. Most people go to bed replaying fears, doubts, and failures, and so they wake with more of the same, but the 1%, they whisper a single sentence before sleep, a sentence so clear that the subconscious has no choice but to obey. Night after night, it carves a new identity, and when identity shifts, wealth follows. This is the bedtime trick that keeps them ahead of everyone else, and tonight it can become yours. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. The world outside is silent. The noise of the day has faded, and you're lying in bed waiting for sleep. Most people think this is the time when life finally pauses, when the body rests and the mind shuts off. But the truth is far more powerful. That final hour before you drift into sleep is not the end of your day. It's the beginning of your tomorrow. It's the workshop where your subconscious mind goes to work, building the reality you'll wake into. Think about what usually happens when people close their eyes at night. They replay the arguments they had during the day, the bills they haven't paid, the mistakes they regret. Their last thoughts are drenched in fear, worry, or regret. And then when they open their eyes in the morning, they wonder why life feels heavy, why they wake up anxious, why their energy is scattered before the day even begins. They don't realize they've spent the final minutes of the night handing their subconscious a blueprint filled with lack, confusion, and fear, and the subconscious faithful servant that it is obeyed. But the 1% understands something. The rest of the world ignores. The subconscious never sleeps. While the body rests, the mind continues to organize, to sort, to build. It takes whatever material you fed it last and starts shaping it into patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that will guide you tomorrow. Garbage in, garbage out, prosperity in, prosperity out. That is the law. Imagine a man who goes to bed every night with a clear sentence in his heart. I am the creator of wealth. I think with clarity and I act with purpose. He repeats it as the room grows quiet. He whispers it as sleep comes. And even when his body surrenders, his mind continues to echo the words. The subconscious accepts the statement, stand it as hope, not as fantasy, but as instruction. And when morning comes, that man rises differently. His choices feel sharper. His posture feels stronger. He notices opportunities he ignored before. He acts with a confidence that surprises even himself. Was it magic? No. It was law. He handed his subconscious the material to build wealth, and it obeyed. Now compare that with the man who goes to bed sighing. I'll never get out of this job. Nothing ever works for me. I'm too tired, too broke, too unlucky. He may think he's just venting, but his subconscious doesn't know the difference. It takes his words as orders, and so, day after day, his life becomes a reflection of the commands he unknowingly gave himself in the dark. That's why most people live the same year over and over again, never breaking free, never rising above. They spend their nights rehearsing failure and their days performing it. The hour before sleep is sacred. It's when the conscious guard finally lowers. When the skeptical, logical part of the mind grows quiet, that's when the subconscious becomes open, suggestible, ready to receive instruction without argument. This is why the wealthiest people, the 1% who lead industries and shape destinies, treat this time like gold. They don't close the day with confusion. They close it with command. They don't hand their mind complaints. They hand it clarity, and that clarity compounds night after night into identity, habits, and results that no one else can seem to match. Let me be clear. You are already programming your subconscious before bed, whether you realize it or not. The only question is, are you programming it by accident or by design? If you allow television, social media, or casual complaining to fill your last thoughts, you are letting random noise build your future. But if you silence the distractions, breathe deeply, and speak a sentence of power, you are choosing to become the architect of your life. Think of Henry Ford. History remembers him for building the automobile empire, but what they don't tell you is how often he rehearsed his vision in silence before the world believed in it. He didn't let defeat put him to bed. He let faith put him to bed. He gave his subconscious orders to keep working while he rested. And by the time the world saw his inventions, his inner world had already been convinced of them. The same was true for Andrew Carnegie, who urged young men to write and repeat their definite chief aim before bed. He understood that wealth is first constructed in the mind brick by brick, word by word, until it's too real not to appear in the outer world. And now I ask you, what are you building in your nightly workshop? Do you go to bed rehearsing lack, planting weeds that will sprout tomorrow? Or do you go to bed planting the seeds of abundance, prosperity, and financial freedom? This is not about superstition. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about aligning with the laws of the subconscious mind. The law is simple. What you repeat with faith in the silence of night becomes your identity, and identity dictates destiny. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember this. You are stepping into your workshop. You are entering the sacred space where the blueprint of your life is drawn. Do not leave it to chance. Do not let fear write your script. Pick up the pen. Choose your sentence. Speak it with certainty. And let your subconscious go to work while you rest. Because when you treat the hour before sleep as the most important hour of your day, you stop being a prisoner of circumstance and start being the commander of destiny. This is the secret. The 1% live by. They don't just work harder during the day, they work smarter during the night. And if you are bold enough to join them to claim your right to program your mind before rest, you will soon discover what they already know. Wealth is not created in the noise of the morning, it is created in the silence of the night. If there is one truth that separates the 1% from everyone else, it is this. They don't scatter their power, they concentrate it. While most people chase 1,000 desires, the wealthy select one clear aim and hammer it into their subconscious until it becomes law. Not a list of vague affirmations, not a random collection of wishes, but a single sentence. One sentence that defines who they are becoming, what they are building, and when it will be theirs. Why only one? Because the subconscious mind does not thrive on clutter. It thrives on clarity. A sentence that is sharp, definite, and commanding can pierce through every doubt. But a dozen weak statements only confuse the inner world. Most people fail, not because they lack dreams, but because their dreams were scattered like broken glass. One piece pointing north, another pointing west, another pointing nowhere. No wonder their lives move in circles. The rich man's sentence, however, is like a spear. It moves straight, with force, with focus. Andrew Carnegie once declared a single aim that became his obsession to dominate the steel industry and build an empire of abundance. That sentence lived in his mind until every decision, every relationship, every opportunity aligned to it, and eventually the world could not resist. He didn't just work steel, he worked thought, and thought, when condensed into one definite command, creates fortune. You must now understand what this sentence is not. It is not a plea. It is not, I hope to be rich, or maybe one day I will find success. The subconscious ignores weak language. It does not act on uncertainty. It only responds to commands delivered with authority. Your sentence must sound like a verdict, not a wish. It must sound like identity. Not it must be so clear that if another person read it aloud, they would know exactly what you are becoming. Say, for example, you long to break free from financial struggle. A weak sentence would be, I want more money. That is a beggar's phrase, and the subconscious treats it as such. But a strong sentence would be, I earn $10,000 every month through services that multiply value for others, and I begin now. Notice the difference. One is hoping, the other is declaring, and only declaration has power. This is why Napoleon Hill spoke of the definite chief aim as the foundation of all wealth. It is not simply a dream written in a notebook. It is a living command spoken aloud until it becomes identity. And once identity shifts, behavior changes. Confidence rises, and the world adjusts to match. Your sentence must also include time. Why? Because a command without time frame is an empty order. If a general tells his soldiers, we will march someday, the army never moves. But if he says we march at dawn, everything prepares. Your subconscious is the same. It must know when, it must know how, and it must believe you have already chosen. And perhaps most important, Your sentence must carry certainty. The words must be drenched in belief. You cannot whisper them as if you're asking permission from life. You must speak them as though life has already delivered. The subconscious does not test your claim. It does not question your right. It only asks, is this command definite? And will it be repeated? If the answer is yes, it obeys. So tonight, as you think about your own sentence, strip away the vagueness. Refuse to allow words like maybe, someday, or I hope. Replace them with the language of mastery. I will, I am, I command. Let it describe your aim with precision. Let it carry a date that lights urgency in your spirit. And let it sound so certain that even your doubts feel out of place. Because this is the truth. The man who speaks one sentence with authority every night will rise higher than the man who repeats 1,000 half-hearted phrases. Power is not in quantity, it is in clarity. The subconscious mind is not impressed by how much you speak. It is impressed by how definite you are. Remember this. Always your outer world bends to your inner identity, and identity is shaped by language. The 1% know this, and so they protect their nightly sentence like treasure. They do not change it with the weather. They do not adjust it with their mood. They select it once, and they repeat it until it becomes bone, blood, and breath. That is why they advance while the masses remain the same. One sentence, that is the difference. One sentence spoken before bed with faith and repetition. One sentence strong enough to rewrite an entire destiny. Repetition is the sculptor of the soul. It is not the single decision that transforms a life, but the decision repeated until it becomes second nature. Most men think identity is something fixed, a product of birth or background. But identity is written and rewritten every night by the words you allow to echo in your mind. You are not who you think you are. You are who you train yourself to be. And the training ground is repetition. Think about the difference between a man who whispers a sentence once and then forgets it, and the man who speaks the same sentence every night for 90 days. The first man is entertained by the idea, but his subconscious barely notices. The second man is carving new grooves into his mind, pressing the words deeper and deeper until they stop sounding like a dream and start feeling like a memory. And once a thought feels like memory, the body and the mind treat it as truth. This is why athletes rehearse the same movement again and again until it becomes automatic. This is why musicians repeat scales until their fingers move without thought. And this is why the wealthy repeat their chosen sentence until their subconscious moves their life toward it without hesitation. It is not effort alone that creates fortune. It is identity reinforced through repetition. The subconscious is like soil. It does not care what you plant. If you repeat fear, the soil produces weakness. If you repeat doubt, it produces hesitation. If you repeat excuses, it produces a life of delay. But if you repeat certainty, prosperity, and purpose, it produces a destiny that reflects those seeds. The soil is neutral, the harvest is not. Most men fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack rhythm. They speak their aim once, maybe twice, and then drift back into old patterns. They expect change without consistency, transformation without habit. But the law does not bend for the inconsistent. The subconscious does not respond to the casual. It responds to the relentless, and here is the beauty of this law. Once repetition installs a new identity, it no longer feels like work. The man who repeats, I am decisive, I am wealthy, I act with purpose every night, eventually wakes up acting decisively without trying. He no longer forces himself to chase wealth. He simply notices opportunities and moves toward them. He no longer struggles to stay disciplined. He simply lives as a man who is disciplined. The identity leads and the habits follow. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said that thoughts, when repeated with faith, eventually pass into action and become reality. Identity is not imposed from outside. It is built from within, brick by brick, word by word, night by night. And once that identity is built, the outer world cannot resist it. People sense it. Circumstances bend to it. Money flows toward it because money always obeys clarity. Let me give you a warning here. Repetition does not only work for success, it works for failure as well. Every night you replay your mistakes. Every night you tell yourself you're too old, too tired, too unlucky. You are repeating a sentence too, and that sentence is writing your identity just as surely as a positive one would. You cannot escape the law. You can only choose which side of it you will obey. So I ask you, what are you repeating? When the lights go out and no one is listening, what is the sentence? You whisper into the silence. Is it complaint? Is it regret? Or is it command? Because only one of these will free you. The 1% know this secret. They don't treat repetition as optional. They treat it as sacred. They do not ask, do I feel like it tonight? They say, it is law. I will not break it. They understand that the subconscious respects consistency more than emotion. It does not care if you are tired. It does not care if you doubt. It only cares whether you will repeat the order again and again until it becomes identity. And here is the gift once repetition installs identity. Identity drives action without force. The man who believes he is wealthy acts wealthy. The man who believes he is powerful speaks powerfully. The man who believes he is decisive no longer hesitates. He has become what he repeated. And nothing is more unstoppable than a man whose identity and actions finally agree. So let me leave you with this truth. You do not rise to the level of your hopes. You fall to the level of your identity. And your identity is built by what you repeat when the world is silent. Repetition is the hammer. Identity is the sculpture. Your life is the statue that emerges. What you whisper tonight, you will live tomorrow. And what you repeat tomorrow, you will become forever. Choose wisely. Repeat relentlessly, because your identity is waiting for the words you decide to make permanent. Words alone are not enough. You can whisper the right sentence every night, but if it comes out flat, lifeless, without energy, your subconscious treats it as background noise. The subconscious does not speak the language of empty syllables. It speaks the language of feeling. Emotion is the flame that burns the words into your soul. Without that flame, repetition is like striking cold iron. There is no change, no impression, no transformation. Think about the moments in your life that shaped you most. They weren't simply words you heard. They were words you felt. Maybe it was encouragement that lifted you or criticism that scarred you. The power was never in the vocabulary itself. It was in the charge of emotion carried behind it. The subconscious remembers not what was said, but how it was delivered. That same law applies when you command yourself before sleep. Most people fail here. They sit in bed, mumbling their sentences with the same tone they'd use to read a grocery list. Their mind hears it, but their soul rejects it. Then they complain that nothing changed. But the wealthy, the 1%, understand that emotion is not optional. It is the multiplier. They speak their sentence with intensity, with conviction, with fire. They let the words vibrate through their chest until the feeling itself becomes evidence of the truth. Picture a man who declares, I am building wealth. I act with purpose. I command abundance. If he says it softly, doubting each syllable, the subconscious yawns and discards it. But if he says it with passion, if he fills the room with certainty, if his body feels the heat of belief, then the subconscious locks onto it like an order it cannot ignore. It doesn't matter that the bank account hasn't caught up yet. The subconscious does not care about the present. It only cares about the power of the suggestion. This is why your nightly ritual must be more than words. You must prepare your state. Breathe deeply. Release the noise of the day. Let your body sit upright with dignity, not collapse into fatigue. Enter the final hour as if you are walking into sacred ground because you are, and then when you speak your sentence, pour emotion into it as if your life depends on it, because it does. Emotion is what turns repetition into identity. A sentence said without feeling is like painting with water. It leaves no mark, but a sentence drenched in emotion carves itself into the clay of your mind, and once the clay hardens, it becomes who you are. Now understand this clearly. You cannot allow negative emotion to be the last voice of your day. If you fall asleep replaying anger, guilt, or fear, those feelings seep deeper than any sentence you try to force afterward. The subconscious does not discriminate. It will accept whatever emotion is most powerful at the gate of sleep. That's why so many people wake heavy. They went to bed with the wrong fire. They fed their future with the ashes of regret. You must reverse this. You must become the ruler of your emotional atmosphere before sleep. Do not wait for the world to calm you. Calm yourself. Do not wait for results to excite you. Excite yourself with vision. Do not let fatigue dull your tone. Speak with energy anyway, because the subconscious does not obey tiredness. It obeys intensity. John D. Rutteller, a man who built empires, was known to reflect before bed, not just on numbers, but on gratitude and certainty. He chose to end his day with an emotional state of stability, confidence, and expectation. He wasn't simply thankful for what was, he was thankful for what was coming. And that gratitude charged with feeling instructed his subconscious to prepare more of it. That is how emotion multiplies. So tonight, when you speak your sentence, don't whisper it like a man hoping. Say it like a man commanding. Let your voice rise above your doubt. Let your heart pound with conviction. If you have to stand tall, look yourself in the mirror and speak it until the emotion rises naturally. Because once the feeling is there, the words transform from mere sounds into law. Remember, this emotion is suggestion magnified. It is the fire that turns weak words into undeniable commands. And every night you repeat your sentence with emotion. You are not only training your subconscious, you are training your entire being to live as the man you declare yourself to be. Say it with fire. Say it with certainty. Say it until the echo of your own conviction becomes louder than every doubt you ever carried. For when the subconscious hears passion, it cannot resist. It must obey. What happens in the night does not stay in the night. The sentence you repeat before bed is not just a ritual. It is a bridge from silence to action, from the unseen to the visible, from thought into behavior. That is why the hour before sleep is so critical. It shapes how you will rise, how you will move, how you will decide when the sun returns. Most people don't realize this. They assume that tomorrow will simply be a continuation of today. They believe that their moods, their habits, their patterns are permanent. But the subconscious mind trained at night has the power to rewrite the script. It adjusts your energy before you even notice. It primes your choices before you even think. It shifts your posture, your tone, your instinct, and suddenly you're not walking into the same day. You're walking into a day built by the blueprint you gave your mind in the silence of the night before. Picture this. A man goes to bed repeating, "I am D as if I am bold. I create wealth with clarity." The words echo through his subconscious as he drifts into sleep. In the morning, he wakes to an email offering an opportunity. On another day, he might have hesitated, overthought, delayed. But today, without even realizing why, he responds immediately, confidently. That one action begins a chain of results, new connections, new contracts, new income. Was it chance, or was it the bridge he built in the night? This is what separates the 1%. They don't wait until morning to decide what kind of person they will be. They decide it before bed. They program their subconscious so that by the time their eyes open, the work has already begun. Their mind is already aligned with their vision. Their spirit is already moving in rhythm with their aim. They are not fighting themselves when the day starts. They are supported by themselves. The man who goes to bed in fear wakes in hesitation. The man who goes to bed in gratitude wakes in confidence. The man who goes to bed with a command wakes with clarity. And clarity is the fuel of action. You've seen this before. Days when you wake up and everything feels aligned. Every choice seems simple. Every obstacle feels smaller. That is the result of a subconscious given clear instructions the night before. This is why your bedtime sentence is not entertainment. It is construction. It is the architecture of tomorrow's decisions. Each night you impress your aim into your subconscious. You are bending your future closer to your will. Each morning you act from a slightly stronger place, and over weeks, months, and years, those small shifts accumulate into destiny. But here is the danger. If you fail to guard this bridge, if you feed your subconscious the wrong materials before sleep, you will carry them into tomorrow. Worry rehearsed at night becomes hesitation in the morning. Anger replayed at night becomes conflict in the day. Doubt whispered at night becomes procrastination when you wake. The bridge is always being built. The only question is whether it carries you closer to freedom or deeper into chains. Henry Ford once said that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But what most forget is that those thoughts are often chosen before sleep. Ford trained himself to review his aim at night, not his failures. He let his subconscious work while he rested, so by morning, he didn't have to drag himself into action. His mind was already moving in that direction. That is the secret. The wealthy don't fight against themselves when the day begins. They have already aligned themselves the night before. So let me ask you, What bridge are you building tonight? Are you sending yourself into sleep with fear, confusion, and regret? Or are you sending yourself into sleep with certainty, prosperity, and command? Because whichever you choose will be waiting for you at dawn. The subconscious never rests. It carries your final words across the night and delivers them as your first steps in the morning. And if you are wise enough to master this bridge, your days will stop feeling accidental. They will start to feel designed. You will notice synchronicities, opportunities, and solutions appearing as if by magic. But it is not magic. It is the law of a subconscious that was instructed, not ignored. This is how the 1% stay ahead. They don't just build systems and businesses during the day. They build themselves at night. They don't just plan projects. They program identity. And when morning comes, they step into a day already shaped for victory. So tonight, do not collapse into sleep like a man with no plan. Enter it like a builder, entering his workshop. Lay the blueprint, speak the sentence, and let the bridge carry you into a tomorrow designed by choice, not by chance. Every night before sleep, you stand at a gate. On one side is the conscious mind, tired, slowing down, ready to rest. On the other side is the subconscious, wide open, ready to receive. And in that moment, the question is not whether the gate will open. It always opens. The real question is, what will you allow to pass through? Most people treat this gate carelessly. They scroll through their phones, filling their minds with news, gossip, fear, and noise. They replay arguments from the day, mistakes from the past, anxieties about the future. Without realizing it, they are standing at the most powerful doorway of their life and letting thieves walk right in. Thieves of confidence, thieves of peace, thieves of wealth. And the subconscious, loyal but blind, accepts whatever is handed to it. Garbage in, garbage out. But the wealthy, the disciplined, the 1%, they guard this gate with their life. They know that once a thought crosses into the subconscious, it doesn't just sit there. It multiplies, it grows roots, it turns into beliefs, and beliefs turn into habits, and habits turn into destiny. That is why they do not leave this moment to chance. They choose what enters. They command what passes. They decide what will be planted. Think about it this way. Your subconscious is like a field. Each night you'll plant seeds. You may not see the growth tomorrow, but give it enough nights, enough water, enough repetition, and the harvest will come. If you plant fear, you harvest hesitation. If you plant doubt, you harvest delay. If you plant complain, you harvest struggle. But if you plant clarity, you harvest confidence. If you plant wealth, you harvest opportunity. If you plant purpose, you harvest destiny. The field does not argue. It only produces. So ask yourself, who is guarding your gate? Is it fatigue, laziness, and distraction? Or is it discipline, intention, and command? Because whether you like it or not, the gate will open tonight, and what passes through will shape your tomorrow. Thomas Edison understood this law. When critics laughed at his failures, he didn't allow their voices to walk through his gate. At night, he guarded his subconscious, feeding it belief, repetition, and vision. He knew that if doubt entered, it would multiply in the dark. But if faith entered, that too would multiply, and it did until the world itself had to obey. The same law governs your life. You cannot afford to fall asleep unguarded. Every careless thought, every replayed regret, every whisper of fear becomes an order stamped into your subconscious. And once stamped, it will rise in your actions tomorrow. Whether you want it to or not, that is why you must choose your sentence with care. That is why you must repeat it with fire. That is why you must guard the gate as if your future depends on it. Because it does. Guarding the gate is not about perfection. It is about direction. Even if the day was messy, even if you stumbled, even if fear screamed in your ear, when night comes, you have one last chance to take control. You can stand at the gate and decide. Only purpose passes tonight. Only power passes tonight. Only wealth, confidence, and command pass tonight. And when you speak that with authority, the subconscious accepts it. Do not underestimate this. Most men think their failure comes from what they did during the day. But failure is planted at night. It begins in the careless thought that slipped past the gate. It begins in the whispered, I can't, the casual maybe later, the silent replay of defeat. By the time morning comes, the subconscious has already accepted it, and the man wakes ready to act out the script he didn't even know he wrote. You must stop this. You must become the guardian of your gate. No thought enters without your permission. No sentence passes without your command. And when you master this discipline, when you guard the gate night after night, you will notice something remarkable. Your mornings change. You rise lighter. You rise sharper. You rise with energy you didn't have before, because your subconscious is no longer weighed down with weeds. It is building only what you planted with intention. Remember this truth. The hour before sleep is not the time to drift. It is the time to direct. It is the moment to stand tall. Take control and decide what passes through the gate of your mind. Do this faithfully, and soon your entire life will reflect the power of a man who guards his gates and commands his destiny. There is a silent destroyer that robs more men of their future than failure ever could. It is not lack of talent. It is not lack of opportunity. It is waiting. Waiting until conditions feel perfect. Waiting until fear disappears. Waiting until someone else gives permission. And every night they whisper to themselves, tomorrow I'll start, tomorrow I'll act. But tomorrow never comes. The 1% live by a different law. They do not wait for clarity. They create it. They do not wait for courage. They act and courage follows. They understand that waiting is not neutral. It is movement in reverse. Each day of hesitation is a day given to another man who refused to wait. Each delay is an opportunity handed to someone else. The world does not pause. The world moves, and those who wait are left behind to serve those who acted. Think of Abraham Lincoln in the darkest days of his leadership. The nation was fractured, the outcome uncertain, the pressure immense. Yet he did not sit in endless councils waiting for the perfect moment. He moved, he acted when the risk was highest because he knew indecision was itself a decision to lose ground. Leaders act and the world adjusts. The same law applies to you every night before bed. When you stand at the gate of your subconscious, you are either commanding movement or you are permitting delay. If your final thought is someday, then your subconscious will carry that indecision into tomorrow. You will wait with hesitation. You will see chances and let them slip. You will explain away your inaction with words like patience or timing. But the truth is simple. You are waiting, and waiting is the seed of servitude. Now consider the opposite. Imagine ending your day with a sentence of certainty. I act with speed, I seize opportunities now. My decisions build wealth and freedom, spoken with fire. That sentence enters the subconscious like a marching order, and when morning comes, hesitation no longer feels natural. Movement does. Action does. You find yourself saying yes to opportunities that once intimidated you, making calls you once avoided, stepping forward where others freeze. Not because you suddenly became braver, but because you stopped waiting. This is why delay is dangerous. It feels safe, but it is a thief. While you wait, someone else builds. While you hesitate, someone else advances, and eventually you will find yourself working for the man who didn't wait. That is the law. Andrew Carnegie started with nothing, yet he did not postpone his aim. He moved when others doubted. He organized when others delayed. He built while others dreamed, and because he acted, the world had to bend to his speed. The same door is open to you, but only if you stop waiting at the threshold and step through. So tonight, let your final words be a command of action, not a prayer of delay. Refuse to let your subconscious fall asleep on the promise of tomorrow. Speak as a man who knows that the only time is now. Tell your mind, I do not wait. I move. My speed creates my freedom. Repeat it until hesitation feels like betrayal and action feels like law. Understand this clearly. The man who waits becomes the servant of the man who acts. But the man who commands himself nightly to move without delay will soon find that the world moves for him. Opportunities will appear not because he is lucky, but because he has trained himself to recognize and seize them while others are still waiting for permission. Do not let your years be stolen by hesitation. Do not let your dreams rot in the soil of delay. Tonight, stop waiting. Tonight, issue the command, and tomorrow walk in obedience to the man you have already declared yourself to be. There comes a point in every man's life when he must decide, will I remain a servant or will I rise as a leader, not a leader of others first, but a leader of myself? Because the truth is, and the world does not reward the man who performs endlessly for someone else's vision. It rewards the man who refuses to live in silent obedience, who dares to write his own command. Most men wake each morning not with purpose, but with orders. They wake to an alarm clock set by their employer. They move through tasks chosen by someone else. They spend their energy building dreams that are not theirs, and at the end of decades they realize they were never truly alive. They were just loyal servants to a system designed to keep them small. But the man who refuses to serve in chains of fear, routine, and blind obedience discovers something extraordinary once he stops kneeling. He begins to rise. Once he says enough to the endless repetition of dependence, his mind unlocks, and in that moment he becomes dangerous, not to others, but to the system that once owned him. This is not about arrogance. It is not about despising service. Service to others, to family, to humanity. This is noble, but servitude to fear, to limitation, to a wage that keeps you barely alive, that is slavery. And the man who chooses to break it, to refuse it, to reject it, is the man who begins to command. Look at the great builders of history. None of them accepted the path laid before them. Thomas Edison was told he was unteachable. He refused that label, and he commanded the world to light itself. Henry Ford was mocked for daring to mass-produce automobiles. He refused their laughter, and he commanded an industry. Andrew Carnegie was born poor in a miner's home. He refused to accept that poverty was permanent, and he commanded steel to build his empire. Every one of them had this in common. They refused to remain servants, and because they refused, they became commanders. The same choice stands before you. You can continue to wake each day in obedience to someone else's vision, or you can begin the discipline of command. That discipline does not start with employees or with titles or with authority. It starts with self. It starts with a nightly decision to program your mind as a commander, not as a servant, to declare before bed, I will not live small. I will not sell my time for crumbs. I was born to build, to direct, to command. And when that declaration becomes identity, your actions shift. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for validation. You begin to move like a man who knows the world must adjust to him, not the other way around. And strangely, people begin to follow. Opportunities begin to align. Wealth begins to flow, not because you begged for it, but because the world always bends to the man who commands himself first. This is the final threshold to leave behind the mentality of a servant and step into the posture of a commander. It is not about ego, it is about responsibility. Because when you lead yourself, you show others what is possible. When you rise above fear, you give others permission to rise as well. When you command your own destiny, you free your children from inheriting chains they never asked for. So tonight, let your final words before sleep be these. I am not a servant to fear, to doubt, to routine. I command my life. I command my wealth. I command my destiny. Repeat it until every part of you believes it. Because once you believe it, the world will believe it too. And when the world believes, it obeys. Remember this truth. The man who continues to serve without question dies forgotten. But the man who dares to command his own soul becomes unforgettable. Identity is the foundation of destiny. You can change your habits. You can change your goals. You can even change your circumstances for a season, but unless you change who you believe yourself to be, nothing lasts. This is the reason why so many men set resolutions by programs, start with energy, and still collapse back into their old lives. They tried to change their actions without ever changing their identity. Your identity is not fixed at birth. It is not decided by your family, your education, or your past. Identity is programmed by repetition, by belief, by the sentences you feed your subconscious when the world grows quiet. The man who falls asleep telling himself, I am weak, I am unlucky, I am too late, will always rise to act like that man. And the man who declares before bed, I am powerful, I am wealthy, I am decisive, will wake and act accordingly, even if yesterday he was none of those things. This is the hidden law. You will never consistently act in a way that contradicts your identity. For a time, you may force yourself, but eventually your subconscious pulls you back. If you see yourself as a servant, you will find a master. If you see yourself as a victim, you will find proof of oppression. But if you see yourself as a builder, you will build. If you see yourself as a leader, you will lead. If you see yourself as a wealthy in spirit and thought, money will begin to obey you. Think of Edwin C. Barnes, a man with no money nor connections and no education worthy of note. He declared one sentence, I will go into business with Thomas Edison. Not I hope to, not I want to, but I will. For years he carried that sentence into sleep, and for years he acted as if it were true. Eventually, the world bent to his identity. He became what he had declared. This is not accident. This is the law of identity. When you command your mind before sleep, you are not simply speaking words. You are building a new self. Every repetition carves another line into the clay of your subconscious. Every night, a faithful declaration hardens that clay until it is no longer soft suggestion but permanent identity. And when identity is fixed, action becomes automatic. Consider a man who repeats nightly, I am disciplined. I act with precision. I finish what I start in the beginning. He may not feel disciplined at all. He may feel like a liar speaking words he hasn't lived, but the subconscious does not care about present contradictions. It cares only about consistency. If he repeats it long enough with emotion, one morning he will rise and act like a disciplined man without even forcing it. The sentence has become identity. This is why identity is more powerful than motivation. Motivation depends on mood. Identity depends on repetition. Motivation fades with fatigue. Identity drives action even when you are tired. The man who believes he is disciplined doesn't ask himself whether he feels like working. He works because it is who he is. The man who believes he is wealthy doesn't wonder if opportunity will come. He sees opportunity everywhere because it matches his self-image. Your outer world always bends to your inner identity. You cannot outwork a poor identity. You cannot outthink a weak self-concept. You must become the man first, and then the results follow. This is why the final hour before sleep is sacred. It is the moment you rewrite who you are. But here is the danger. If you do not consciously create a new identity, the world will create one for you. Your failures will whisper, you are not enough. Your critics will echo, you are small. Your routines will reinforce you, are average. And your subconscious will accept it if you do not guard the gate. That is how men live their entire lives, repeating someone else's script. You must intervene. You must choose your own identity with precision and declare it nightly until it becomes bone, blood, and breath. Identity is not about pretending. It is about deciding. Decide who you are. Decide what you command. Decide what you expect from yourself. And then repeat it until your subconscious agrees, until your body obeys, until your life aligns. Let me remind you, the wealthy are not different because of luck. They are different because they see themselves differently. They believe themselves capable. They believe themselves chosen. They believe themselves destined. And because they believe it long enough, the world reflects it back. So tonight, stop speaking like a servant. Stop speaking like a victim. Stop repeating sentences that keep you small. Instead, write the script of the man you are becoming. Speak it aloud before bed. Let the words echo with emotion. And every night you do, you are chiseling away the old you and revealing the new identity beneath. You are not here to live out someone else's story. You are here to command your own. And your story begins not with what you do tomorrow, but with what you declare tonight. Say this with power. I am no longer the man I was. I am the man I have chosen to become. Let that sentence become your new identity. Repeat it nightly until the world no longer remembers the old you because you no longer do either. The night is not just the end of your day. It is the beginning of your destiny. Every evening, as the world grows quiet and the noise fades away, you hold in your hands the most powerful tool of transformation, the final thought before sleep. The man who controls this hour does not simply rest. He builds. He does not drift into dreams. he directs them, and because he commands the night, he commands his life. Most men misunderstand this. They believe success is built only in daylight through action and hustle. They think wealth is born of grinding, sweating, pushing harder than the next man. But the truth is, what you do by day is only the harvest of what you planted by night. If you plant confusion before bed, you reap hesitation when you wake. If you plant fear, you reap paralysis. If you plant doubt, you reap delay. But if you plant vision, you reap clarity. If you plant purpose, you reap confidence. If you plant command, you reap leadership. This is why the 1% treat their nightly ritual as sacred. They do not fall asleep by accident. They do not waste their final hour on empty entertainment. They use it as a forge. They write their definite aim. They repeat their chosen sentence. They ignite it with emotion, and they let their subconscious work while their body rests. By the time the sun rises, they are already ahead. Not because they worked harder, but because they programmed deeper. Understand this. The subconscious never sleeps. While you lie still, it organizes, it connects, it builds, it takes whatever instruction you gave it last and multiplies it in the dark. That means every night you either release servants of fear or soldiers of faith into your future. And whichever you send, they will be waiting for you at dawn. Think of Thomas Edison rehearsing belief in the face of failure. Henry Ford affirming his vision when critics mocked him. Andrew Carnegie commanding his subconscious to build empires long before his hands could. These men mastered the night. They refused to let careless thoughts cross the gate. They understood that identity is forged in silence, not in applause. So let me ask you, how do you end your days? Do you let fatigue choose your thoughts? Do you let worry slip past the gate? Or do you stand guard and issue commands with certainty? Because the man who controls the night commands the day, and the man who commands the day shapes his destiny. Do not underestimate this. Whole lives have been lost because men treated the night as nothing more than rest. Whole fortunes have been missed because men fell asleep rehearsing failure. But lives have also been rebuilt. Fortunes created, legacies forged because one man in one quiet room chose to speak one powerful sentence before closing his eyes. This is the choice before you now. You can end tonight the way you always have, drifting into slumber, letting the old identity replay itself. Or you can end tonight like a commander, speaking the new identity you have chosen, planting it deep into your subconscious and rising tomorrow already transformed. Say it with conviction. I command my mind before sleep. I speak only what I choose to become. Each day I rise in obedience to the man I have declared. Repeat it until you feel it, until you believe it, until you know it is law. Because once you master this ritual, once you treat the night as your workshop, you will discover what few ever do. The night is not an end. It is the beginning of mastery. And the man who masters the night will master his life. If you have listened this far, you already know your nights will never be the same again. You are no longer a man who drifts into sleep with worry on his lips and fear in his heart. You are the man who commands. You are the man who plants vision, purpose, and power into your subconscious every single night. And because of that, your mornings will change. Your days will sharpen. Your future will obey. Remember this truth. Wealth is not built only in daylight. It is constructed in the silence of the night. The man who controls his final thought controls his destiny. You now have the key. You now have the law. What you do tonight will echo through every tomorrow. So do not break this cycle. Do not drift back into mediocrity. Stand guard, repeat your sentence, command your identity, and rise each day as the man you have declared yourself to be. Because when you do, there will be no force strong enough to hold you down. Now it's your turn. If this message struck you, if it woke something inside you, then don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button so more people can break free from the drift. Subscribe to this channel and join the community of men and women who refuse to live small. And share this with someone you care about, because you never know whose life could be changed by a single sentence spoken before sleep. Say it one last time with me. I command my mind before sleep. I speak only what I choose to become. And each day I rise in obedience to the man I have declared. Your future begins tonight. Now go speak your sentence. Claim your power and build the life you were born to.